The advertisement had promised perfection. Hire the exclusive 5-star Butler experience. He are trained in the art of discretion, refinement, and service. Caroline Hayes had clicked the glossy ad late one sleepless night in her Manhattan penthouse, her eyes still stinging from tears she would never admit to crying. It wasn't about the butler, not really. It was about filling the silence of her home, the echo of rooms too big for one woman, the long, hollow stretches between boardroom victories and the loneliness waiting behind double-locked doors. She had told herself it was just practical. Someone to pour her tea properly, to make sure the wine was always uncorked just right when clients came over, to take the sting out of living alone in a city that never slowed down. That was what she told herself when she clicked confirm. So when the doorbell rang on the bright Friday morning, she expected crisp black suit, polished shoes, an accent carefully cultivated in some Swiss academy. Instead, when she opened the door, there stood a man in a frayed jacket, his tie missing, holding the small hand of a barefoot little girl with blonde hair so tangled it looked like spun straw. A harmonica peeked out of his pocket, the silver edges catching the sunlight. Caroline blinked. "I'm sorry, I think you're lost. This is a private residence." The man shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tightening like he'd been bracing for this. His daughter pressed closer to his side, her tiny toes curling against the cold marble floor of the hallway. He cleared his throat. "Name's Daniel. Daniel Carter. They sent me from the agency." He pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket, smoothed it against his leg, and held it out. Caroline snatched it, irritation bubbling up. But the letterhead was the same as the company she'd wired a ridiculous sum to. Her eyes scanned the words, confirming his name. Her gaze snapped back to him. "You're supposed to be a butler." He let out a humorless chuckle. "Supposed to? Yeah, guess I'm more of our broken bar fill-in. They said they were short-staffed." "I'll do my best, Mom." Her perfectly plucked brow arched. "With a child?" The girl peeked up at Caroline, then ducked behind her father again, thumb inching toward her mouth before she caught herself and clutched the hem of his jacket instead. Daniel swallowed hard. "She's with me for now, no one else to watch her." Caroline opened her mouth to dismiss them both, to demand the agency fix this outrageous mistake. But something in the man's eyes stopped her cold. They weren't pleading, though they easily could have been. They weren't defensive, though he had reason. They were simply tired. Tired in a way she recognized from too many nights staring at her own reflection after 18-hour days. The silence stretched. Then the harmonica slipped from his pocket and clattered onto the marble floor. The little girl gasped, bent down, and scooped it up carefully, cradling it like treasure. She whispered, "Daddy plays music when I can't sleep." Caroline's throat tightened unexpectedly. She turned away, irritated at herself, at them, at the agency, at everything. "Fine," she said finally, her voice clipped. "You can stay until I get a replacement. But this is temporary." Daniel nodded, relief flashing just briefly across his face before he masked it again. "Understood, Mom." "Thank you." That day should have been nothing more than an inconvenience. Yet as hours passed, the presence of Daniel and his daughter began to ripple through Caroline's carefully controlled world. He wasn't polished, but he was quick, attentive. He brewed her coffee stronger than she usually took it, but somehow it tasted better. He hummed while ironing her blouses, and though she almost told him to stop, she found herself listening for it when he grew quiet. His daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing pictures on scraps of paper, her little feet leaving faint dusty prints on Caroline's spotless hardwood. By evening, Caroline was more unsettled than she cared to admit. She poured herself a glass of wine and watched the city lights flicker from her window. Daniel stood in the doorway, hesitant. "Do you want me to handle dinner?" She nearly laughed. "Do you even know what a reduction sauce is?" He smiled faintly. "No, Mom. But I make a mean grilled cheese." Against her better judgment, Caroline let him. When he set the plate in front of her, the bread perfectly golden, cheese stretching in gooey strands, she stared at it like it was an alien object. Then she bit into it. Something warm spread through her chest. Not the taste itself, for it was simple food, but the memory it stirred, of sitting in a cramped kitchen years ago, her mother sliding a plate across the table after a long day of work. Her eyes stung again, and she set the sandwich down quickly. "This doesn't mean you're staying." Daniel nodded, but his daughter beamed like Caroline's words hadn't mattered at all. Later that night, Caroline passed the living room and froze. The lights were dimmed, and Daniel sat on the floor with his harmonica, playing a soft, haunting tune. His daughter lay curled beside him, already drifting to sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm with the music. Caroline lingered in the shadows, unwilling to admit that something about the scene made her ache in places she thought had long gone numb. She told herself it was temporary, that the agency would send someone more suitable any day now. But deep down, some fragile part of her already knew, nothing about this mistake would prove simple.